comic book fans, and welcome to a special edition of Cammy's Comic Corner, the Book of the Month episode for the month of August 2009. I'm your host as always, Cammy. Now, when we usually think Superman stories, and I mean the good Superman stories, we might think of such classics as Superman for All Seasons, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, or Mark Millar's very popular Superman Red Sun. These are all good books, but when I was getting back into comics and really starting to really enjoy the stories, one title really stood out to me, one Superman story, because I'm not really much of a Superman fan, but when he's written well, it's one of the greatest characters in comics today. So without further ado, the book of the month is Superman Secret Identity, written by Kurt Busiek and art by Stuart Immonen. Now, in this world that takes place in the comic book, there are no superheroes, but it does revolve around a boy named Clark Kent, and he grows up in a small town in Kansas, and he gets constantly bullied and picked on because of it. Everyone's sending him all this Superman gifts for his birthdays, and you know, everyone's like, oh, it's hilarious because your name's Clark Kent, ah! And he is just so over this. He just does not want this happening anymore. Yeah, haha, it's funny. But anyway, so one night when he's off camping, because he likes to get out, it's Kansas, they don't have Nintendo or whatnot. While out camping, he all of a sudden learns that he can fly. And he has all these abilities like Superman would have. And, you know, to be that young and to realize you can fly, yes please, that sounds pretty kick-ass. So, on the weekends, he likes to fly around the world, see all these different sights, and then one day he discovers that there's a flood happening in a nearby state. And so he goes and makes a couple of rescues, and then he realizes, I can do this for a living. I have no problem, you know, doing the Superman thing and, you know, using my powers for good. Well, he does more and more rescues over the years, and people are starting to take blurry photographs. There's a new Superboy hoax. Even the government is interested because this could be, you know, another weapon in their arsenal if they can train it well. So while in the midst of this, a reporter breaks the story and he decides maybe he wants to give a little bit more information to the reporter. So he has this weekly meeting with this Wendy Case, this is the name of the reporter, and then she betrays his trust eventually, tries to film him on camera. He says that wasn't part of the agreement. So for a Halloween, he decides to hide in plain sight. He wears a Superboy outfit, one on that he had in his closet, tucked away with all those other Superman prizes. He's not the only one, like the bully who gives him a hard time. He's even wearing the Superman costume. And all of a sudden, a gas main just explodes, and everyone's running away, and people could be hurt, but since he's there and is in the outfit, he goes and rescues everyone, and Wendy gets really mad because there's this iconic moment where he's holding this pole from falling on this girl, and he has to really think quickly because all these photographers are taking pictures of him. And he acts like he was just balancing it. Oh, help, help, it's actually trapping me. And so everyone puts this Superboy hoax to rest. It turns out the person who started this big gas fire, that would be Miss Wendy Case. She was trying to smoke him out. And sure enough, it worked. And she's behind bars. Meanwhile, in book 2, we cut to Metropolis, or Manhattan, a couple of years later, where he's working at the Daily Planet, or I'm sorry, the New Yorker, as not a journalist, but as a writer. He really enjoys being a freelance writer, and so much that he finally gets a book deal going on. But his articles need to be more human. They feel like they're from an alien perspective. Get it? Okay. And in the meantime, his friends are constantly trying to hook him up with different people named like Lana or Lois, and one even a Cat Grant in there. And this one Lois gets so fed up because she is getting randomly hooked up with guys named Clark as well, because everyone thinks it's hilarious, and he has to explain to her, no, this has happened to me a lot of times before, nothing new. And they kind of click, they have something going on, and then, you know, it turns out to be a relationship. And he's happy about this because he hasn't really found love in his life before. Well, on one routine rescue, he gets captured and detained by the U.S. government. When he wakes up in this little science fiction like horror story, everywhere around him are different like dead bodies of soups being experimented on, and they're even experimenting on babies in this like holding science cell. And so he just destroys everything, destroys all evidence, and gets the hell out of there. Now he has to worry about the government, and he always has to be looking over his shoulder from now on. So he invests in a pair of reading glasses, very Clark Kent-esque. And he finally, at the end of the second book, he decides to tell Lois, since he loves her so much, that hey, I'm Superman in a sense, and she's pretty okay with it. Meanwhile, he's growing older, and when he finds out that Lois is pregnant and a family's about to start, he decides that he maybe want to, instead of running from the government, he might want to have him off his back and cooperate with them. So the first time he attempts to cooperate, he says, hey, I'm not going to get anything political, but if you need me for a disaster or whatnot, there'll be a way for you to contact me. And the agent Malloy, he goes, well, why all of a sudden? And that kind of startles Clark, because he's like, oh crap, no, he knows I have an alternative motive. And so, in order to get another meeting set up, he shows how crafty he is by sneaking into the Pentagon, the White House, replacing secret documents with old Superman comics, etc., making his presence known. And while he's doing these rescues and saving people, he's wearing the Superman outfit because, like I said before, who's going to believe some nut job saying, I was saved by Superman? The guy's only in comic books. Come on. So by the end of the third book, he and the U.S. government are working together. Nothing political, just natural disasters. And the twins are born. And the twins' names are Carol and Jane. They weren't going to burden their children with Lana or Lois or Clark or Pa or Ma, if they were kinky like that, I guess. And they watch the girls grow up, and they're always, testing them to see if they're having any powers, just like old Dad. But sure enough, they don't. And he's becoming a really well-known publisher during this time. And so Agent Malloy still calls him for the missions, but nowadays it's less and less, because he's kind of theorizing that they have their own superpowered team nowadays, doing the political stuff, the stuff that Clark's not going to get his hands dirty with. So one day, while he's attempting to stop a tornado in southern Australia, he hears faint laughter as someone has beaten him to the punch. And since the girls are all grown up by now, he's wondering, did they really develop powers after all? Well, sure enough they did, and they even help him stop a derailing train. And then they all have a chat saying, like, yeah, we just didn't want to tell you guys, or, we didn't want you guys to freak out, but yeah, we have powers just like you. And by the end of the series, Agent Malloy retires because he's pushing 65, and Clark realizes, well, maybe I should really retire too, because the world has drastically changed, and there are now, super beings out there, mainly working for the government. But they've had a cat and mouse game, Clark and Agent Malloy, for the past couple of, decades, on finding out who Clark really is. Well, apparently Malloy found out a long time ago that, hey, I know that you're Clark Kent, and he kept it secret, because, you don't really want to piss off the guy that can kill you in a heartbeat. But he says, hey, I enjoyed your books, and it makes Clark feel happy, and feels that he's really helped make the world what it is today. And so at the end, we are shown that his kids have kids of their own, and the grandchildren are also superpowered, but they're named things like Jimmy and Lana and Lois, and so they've got to keep the humor alive in being a Kent. And so it's a very nice ending where he's just doing his favorite thing in watching the sunset, and every time that the sun sets, all he has to do is fly east and watch it all over again. And he has a really cool grizzled look with the beard and everything at the end, making it a cool grandpa Superman in a way. But anyway, that's Superman's Secret Identity for you. I really enjoyed the book. I think this is one of Kurt Busiek's best written comics to date. And even though it came out in 2004, it still lives up to the hype today. Unfortunately, I would have liked to give this away as a, as a prize, but apparently it's really hard to find because I don't think they're printing it anymore. And the prices that I was seeing on eBay were, I was going, okay, well, that's one price. Like on Amazon, it was going for $106. $106? It's not absolute Watchmen, for crying out loud. But anyway, so sorry, no contest this month. Maybe next month. But if you like what you've been watching and want more Cammy's Comic Corner goodness, head on over to www.cammyscomiccorner.com. From there, you can subscribe to us on the RSS feed, or on iTunes, or even on Twitter. I've recently gotten to the Twitter craze. And if you like any of the kick-ass t-shirts that you see me wearing, head on over to www.deadlinegraphics.net and send Kelly an email. He has tons of Superman t-shirts, all available to you. There's only one name that I trust when it comes to comic book t-shirts, and that is Kelly over at www.deadlinegraphics.net. And another person who likes Superman and has a lot of Superman stuff is my other sponsor, Rising Sun Creations, found at rsc-online.com. They specialize in manga, US comic books, and collectible toys imported straight from Japan. And a lot of those comic books are Superman comic books. World of New Krypton, got the classics, All-Star Superman, etc. Thanks again to Rising Sun Creations at rsc-online.com for sponsoring the show. Well, that does it for this book of the month. I hope you go out and enjoy it if you can get a copy of it, sounds like. Tune in next month for another book of the month pick. I got nothing else to say. So, till next time, this has been Cammy's Comic Corner, Book of the Month Club for August. I have been your host, Cammy. Now, I hear Jimmy's signal watch going off, so I must be off.